to this edition of the Freedom Link. This April Fool's Day. Oh, good grief. No, of course, I'm not going to be doing any April Fool's crap here tonight. But I'm Joe Joseph along with Johnny King and El Jono. How you doing today, buddy?
Oh, I'm done for the day. I'm well. And yes, no April Fools from us today.
Is that, well, you know. And rightfully so. Let me tell you something. I thought it was April Fool's today when I started to look at some of the articles that were coming out in defense of Jade Helm. We'll get into that. One of the things that really bother me about all this, there isn't enough people with life experience really talking about the reality of Jade Helm and some of the spin that's going on in support of it. So I want to talk about that tonight, specifically because what we have here is a serious propaganda operation trying to defend it. And they use things in this piece that we're going to take to the woodshed, Washington Post, by the way, to justify it when there's absolutely no justification whatsoever. And then I'm going to do a favor. This is at the request of my brother who is listening in tonight because he's like, why aren't you covering Operation Jade Helm? Well, because everybody else is doing it. But when I saw this today, I had to speak up as like I said, the propaganda machine is and just in full swing. So let's get into it. Hour number 2, we'll get into some other stuff, too, that's going to blow your freaking mind. So just you wait. Here we go. The Washington Post today came out with a story. Why Operation Jade Helm 15 is freaking out the internet and why it shouldn't be. First thing that you get from that, right? Oh, you heard it on the internet, man, right? Right, Johnny? Because that's what they try to do. They frame it as if you heard it on the internet, you're a freak.
Yep, absolutely.
When, let's be real here, okay? Just everybody, if you would, please put your critical thinking caps on. It's time to, let's just open our minds for a second, if we will, and think about what's going on with technology. The fact that everything now is digital, okay? So, yes, is there crazy stuff on the internet? Absolutely. Everybody has the freedom to be able to post what they want sometimes without being censored. Not all the time, but sometimes. But everybody can really, you can have a website, you can have a blog, anybody can do it. And you got to be very careful about where you get your sources from. But as you go and as you research, you develop a little bit of discernment. You start to understand what's a good source, what's not a good source, who's the critical thinkers, who's not a critical thinker. And you start to see a picture emerge. And one thing that I've noticed, especially with the mainstream media, is they'll put out 95% truth oftentimes, but it's at 5% and it sticks out like a sore thumb that lead the masses astray. And it does it ever so slightly, because if they do it in a egregiously upfront manner, typically what happens is people can see through the BS. And Dan Lamoth wrote this. He writes, the mission is vast, both geographically and strategically. Elite service members from all 4 branches of the U.S. military will launch an operation this summer in which they will operate covertly among the U.S. public and travel from state to state in military aircraft. Texas, Utah, a section of Southern California, are labeled as hostile territory, and New Mexico isn't much friendlier. That's a scheme for Jade Helm 15, a new special operations exercise that runs from July 15th to September 15th. Army Special Operations Command announced it last week, saying the size and scope of the mission set it far apart from any other training exercises. Quote, the nature of warfare is always changing, and U.S. Army Special Operations Command mission is to make certain the Army's various special operations forces are trained, equipped, and organized to successfully conduct worldwide special operations in support of national interests. This according to Army Lieutenant Colonel Mark Lastoria, who just so happens to be a command spokesman. He said this in an email to the Post. Training exercise Jade Helm is going to assist our special operations soldiers and leadership in refining the skills needed against an ever-changing foreign threat. Stop there. If you're going against a foreign threat, why are you trying to blend in with American citizens? That's number one. Because what they're framing this is we're training to combat, John, ISIS and also Iran and in Syria. So the country of Iran, in Syria, and against ISIS. How does training in American cities, blending in with an American public that is absolutely nothing like the culture over there, how is that beneficial? You know, the military says train the way you fight, fight the way you train.
I was just going to ask that same question similarly. When you're fighting someone and you're training to invade them, wouldn't you want to be as close to the person or country that you're about to invade as possible? I mean, you're not going to train to take over a large city such as Los Angeles in a small 2-horse town. You're going to want to do it, say, in a city like Los Angeles, and tell people that you're training for Syria when 99% of them don't have a clue where Syria is on the map.
Now, again, I want to preface this, okay? So, Dan Lamoth, you have absolutely no life experience, obviously, or you're just a puppet for the propaganda machine. I mean, that is absolutely 100% true. I will prove it to you tonight. Now, he continues. He says, the exercise has prompted, here it is, widespread conspiracy theories that the United States is preparing to hatch martial law. Now, stop there. Why would there be, John, widespread conspiracy theories that the United States is preparing to hatch martial law? Because, of course, that's never happened here in the United States, right? There's never been any sort of justification for people to be wary about this, let alone the fact that it violates posse comitatus, something that they trashed after 9/11, all in the guise of peace and safety, you know?
Yeah. Didn't they put the Japanese in internment camps in this country? Japanese Americans in internment camps and during World War II? No one can say that it will never happen here because it already has twice. Lincoln did it.
Absolutely. Okay, so anyway, this has happened time and time again. That's a great example, John. Absolutely great example. If you go to YouTube, there is a video, if you will. Well, actually, it was a propaganda film that they showed before, movies, highlighting the need for Japanese relocation. It was a propaganda piece, okay? So, and of course, there's absolutely no justification for this. Absolutely none. And when you start to concede that, we head into really sketchy territory. But let me continue here. So he gave some examples. This is from Belinsky, Bible and Truth. This is a tweet. It says, if Operation Jade Helm were happening in any other country, it would be immediately labeled for martial law. And he gave the natural news piece. He also cited Joe Biggs of InfoWars. Beyond denial, preparations for martial law in America. So you notice right now it's an attack on independent media. Also, Prediction Man on Twitter tweeted, breaking, Jade Helm 15 and is martial law in the USA, Russia to arm insurgents in the USA. Now that is getting a little bit over the top. We didn't need to go there because now you're just speculating. Okay. However, if you read the Operation Jade Helm presentation, you can see obviously that there is an operation underway that is totally unnecessary and that doesn't fit the reasons that they're giving for the operation itself. But Dan continues, and he says, quote, in particular, some have expressed alarm about this map, which outlines events for the exercises in unclassified documents posted online last week. Now, they were leaked last week, by the way. The Washington Post verified them to be legitimate by speaking to Army sources. They appear to have been prepared for local authorities. Yes, because local authorities are working in tandem with special ops. This, again, is a violation of posse comitatus. Why people are not up in arms right now is beyond me. It's absolutely asinine to me and unthinkable that people just are not absolutely enraged by this. But he continues. He says several media outlets have noted that the Army has pushed back on the outcry, including Stars and Stripes. Yeah, let's term it the way it is. Several media outlets have noted that the Army propaganda machine has been pushed into gear due to the outcry, including Stars and Stripes, Army Times, and the Houston Chronicle. But it's also worthy to note that the military has routinely launched exercises in the past in which regions of the United States are identified as hostile for the purpose of training. Okay, now this is where it gets sticky, and this is where they use a exercise that has nothing to do and is nothing like this Jade Helm. Because we can look, Johnny, before I get into bold alligator, which is what he uses as an example, you can look at all these previous exercises. Fort Lauderdale, Florida, also down in Texas, St. Louis, Missouri, up in Connecticut, all over the Minneapolis, Minnesota, you know, the Twin Cities. You see black helicopters, you see special ops operating inside population centers. They're storming abandoned buildings. They're doing house-to-house searches, everything like that. At what point in time is there going to be a outcry by the American people? You know what? You're not, because the shock value's gone. It's gone. See, they're used to seeing it now. So they use this piece. And it's called, this operation called Bold Alligator. It's a naval exercise, okay? Now, Bold Alligator happens every year. It's a common exercise. And what they do is they simulate landing on a foreign country's shores. Typically, they'll pick an East Coast or a West Coast site, and then they have a map that shows what this looks like. Now, in Bold Alligator, it's a gigantic amphibious landing. And the preface behind it is to do an amphibious landing to prevent insurgent groups in a fictional country known as Garnett. Now, Georgia and part of Florida in real life is what they use for, and you know, it goes all the way inland to the United States. Here's the difference. The Marines and the Seabees, which are your main beach stormers, I guess you could say. The Marines go first, and then the Seabees will set up the bases and all that kind of stuff and build all that. Happens on the shore. It's not in population centers. It happens on the shore. They may go a mile inland, but they're not going in population centers. They're not storming buildings. They're not doing anything like that. Bold Alligator is something that needs to be done should you have to do an amphibious assault. And amphibious assaults happen the same way anywhere you go, because you go to any beach at any point in the world and it's made of sand, and water rushes up to the sand. And typically, you don't have mass population centers on the beach. They're more inland. If you've ever looked at an amphibious assault, they don't do it in New York City. It doesn't happen. It's not a good place to take an LCU or an LCAC, a hovercraft, onto land. So they use a beach. Bold Alligator is a horrible example. Train the way you fight the way you train. So, if you know that you're going to have to, or there's a possibility that you're going to have to perform an amphibious assault, and by the way, the United States has quite a formidable amphibious fleet, then you would train on the beach. But there's no good reason that you can give me for special forces to be training within the American populace, blending in population centers. Because that's not train the way you fight the way you train for Syria and Iran. That's train the way you fight the way you train for blending in with the American public and either taking people out and or doing the things that you need to do to take out, quote, insurgents. Now, who are insurgents, you might add? Well, that would be anybody that speaks out against the government. That would be independent media. That would be if you had a Ron Paul sticker on the back of your car. I mean, we remember the Mayak report, right? That was kind of crazy. You know? Johnny, you remember that? How many different kinds of people were terrorists?
Just about everybody. If you believe in God, or if you don't believe in God, if you believe in the Constitution, just that thing covered just about everybody in the United States. There's probably one or two people tucked away somewhere in the far corners of Alaska it didn't apply to. But you can Google it by typing in MIAC. It's called the MIAC report. It's from the government. It's official. You may want to take that a look.
Right. Now, also, Green Beret soldiers worked to liberate the country of Pineland, in which they operated in western South Carolina in some activities in Sumter National Forest on federal property. Again, not in population centers, and certainly not operating within and among the American public. And again, if special ops were to go overseas and try to blend in like they blend in San Diego, California, or Corpus Christi, Texas, or Salt Lake City, Utah, they're obviously not going to they're not going to blend in the same way. And the techniques for blending in will be vastly and starkly different. This is not rocket science. But they use a operation that is totally and completely different. Why? Because people don't have the life experience. They don't know what bold alligator is and all about. All they can see is a map that they use that shows that the United States is broke up into all these fictitious nation states. But they're apples and oranges. This is a total and complete smear piece on the independent media and anybody that does their due diligence in trying to investigate this stuff, which is what we should all be doing.
Joe, I'm in Pennsylvania, Stan.
So this is a very, very horribly written piece, and one that is meant to absolutely deceive the American public. It's like like Popeye says. He's a hack. No doubt. And you know what? Guy may be a good guy. I don't know. He's just horribly misinformed, and he's eating the pop propaganda up like crazy. Now, one of the reasons why they say that they need to operate within the American cities is because, well, we don't have anywhere else to train. Is that so? I seem to recall a couple of years back, August 4th, 2013 to be specific, where we blew the lid. This was when Unbound Radio was on the air, and we were over there. We blew the lid on a place called Carness Village at Fort Chaffee, Arkansas. And Carness Village is what the National Guard, the Army National Guard, calls it. And oh, by the way, you can go see this article on Federal Jack and see the pictures of this. Just look up Carness Village in federaljack.com. You'll see it. But a mock American town, which even contains dummy citizens for domestic training purposes, located on the grounds of Fort Chaffee Maneuver Training Center. The massive training compound's likely a dead ringer clue foreshadowing the grim path that we now are traversing as a nation. It is a mock American city. Now, what they'll say is, wow, we're using it for overseas. Look, if you look at the buildings, one of them is like looks like a Baptist church. How many mosques have you seen that look like a Baptist church? You know, we have over at Carness Village, you know, they've got like these structures like townhomes. Go over to the Middle East and tell me how many townhomes you see. I'm going to put the link in the chat room for people to see these pictures. And if you want to check out the chat room, just go to truthfrequencyradio.com and select the chat room, and you will see it there. They have banks set up there. It looks just like a bank, you know? John, it's unbelievable. But they'll say, oh, yes, it's for foreign training. That's what it's for, yes. Like I said, when you look at this, there's buildings that look like a hospital. They've got the fake dummies. You got bank-looking buildings. You got bus stops. You got townhomes. And these streets, they are American streets. That is what it's set up for, and that's what it simulates. So then...
Small town USA?
Oh, but wait, there's more. Because I got to talk to a former operator with the SEALs. And guess where they went to train? Of course, Carnus Village. Well, guess who was there when they got there? And this troubled the SEALs greatly.
Obama?
No. The Department of Homeland Security. And when they got there, DHS was decked out with MRAPs and some of the latest combat gear. And you'd have to say to yourself, well, why does DHS have all this military equipment, tanks, the whole nine? And the SEALs asked those questions. What the hell are you guys doing down here, and what do you need all this for? And they laughed at them. They laughed. What does that tell you about where we are in the United States? And Carnus Village isn't the only place. It's not the only place. Oh, no, 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 no. How about this? Now, Infowars.com, about a year ago, February 14th, Valentine's Day of last year, did an expose on the fake city in Virginia to practice military occupation. It says the U.S. Army's built a 300-acre fake city, complete with a sports stadium, a bank, a school, an underground subway, in order to train for unspecified combat scenarios. And this is located in Radford, Virginia, built at a cost to the taxpayer of $96 million, taking 2 years to complete. And while the city was ostensibly built to prepare for U.S. troops for the occupation of cities abroad, some will undoubtedly fear that the real intention could be closer to home, although the sites include a mosque, and the town looks very American in every other way, even with English signs. You know, at least if it's going to be about like a foreign city or, like the Middle East, could you maybe put like Arabic signs up and maybe some Arabic or some Middle Eastern architecture, stuff like that? And in fact, the subway carriages even carry the same logo as the carriages in Washington, D.C. Could that suggest, perhaps, the site was built to double both as a foreign city and a mock domestic town? Now, this is according to John P. Petokis, or Petkakisek. I can't pronounce it, but I'll butcher it anyway. This is what he said. This quote, "This is a place where we can be creative, where we can come up with solutions for problems that we don't even know we have yet." I mean, what? Oh, wait, but there's more. "This is where we'll look at solutions for the future, material solutions and non-material solutions. Anything from how you're going to operate in a subterranean environment to how you dismount a Humvee and avoid an IED strike." This is a big demonization of domestic political groups and extremists, and it's prompted numerous scenarios where commentators have suggested that the U.S. and Army National Guard personnel could be needed to quell civil unrest. Because nothing in this country is showing us that we're in deep doo-doo, is there, John?
No, not at all, Joe. Go back to sleep. Nothing to see here.
Exactly right. Now, this in 2012, an academic study about the future use of the military as a peacekeeping force within the United States, written by a retired Army colonel, depicted a shocking scenario in which U.S. Army is used to restore order to a town that had been seized by Tea Party insurrectionists. Have you noticed the Tea Party lately? Yeah, I think the average age of the Tea Party right now is about, 75, 80. I mean, it was totally hijacked. When Ron Paul had it, it was all young people. Now, not so much. Been hijacked by the establishment. And in a very effective way. Now you got like the Tea Party Express. Ooh, look at that. It's a train. It's a Tea Party. Yeah, they're really going to do that. So see, this is all horse pucky and BS, but what could they be preparing for? We'll discuss that on the other side of the break. We'll also get into some of the historical background on this, because if they are trying to set up and establish a fascist dictatorship in the United States, well, that never happened before, did it? Oh, yes, it did. We'll get into General Smedley Butler as well. So don't go away. Much more to come on the Freedom Link here at Truth Frequency Radio, truthfrequencyradio.com.